In the heart of Arizona, under a sky too wide for mercy, a man dug a grave, not for someone he lost, but for himself. And just as he was about to disappear, 5 little girls appeared from the desert, dirty, barefoot, and running from something worse than death. Once Thaddeus Cornelius shaped wood with tenderness, carving sanding and staining the tiny cradle where his daughter Sarah would rest her head each night. That cradle, once filled with lullabies and the scent of warm blankets, now gathers dust in a silent house, and the same hands that built it now grip a shovel. Deep in the Arizona desert, beneath a gray sky, swollen with storm, Thaddeus digs into the unforgiving earth, not for a stranger, not for someone recently lost, but for himself. His coat hangs loose on his shoulders, his breath shallow, his eyes empty. Every movement of the shovel is mechanical numbing. This is no ritual of burial, it is surrender. He is not weeping because even grief has long turned to stone. This is the final act of a man who once loved deeply and was loved in return until fate tore everything from him, piece by piece, breath by breath. Now only the grave remains, and even that he must dig himself. Every time the metal blade sinks into the dry red clay, it echoes like a memory he cannot silence. Not just the trauma of loss, but the slow erosion of what makes a man human. Each thrust drives him deeper into a nightmare where the past never fades. He hears it, Sarah's laughter echoing across the porch, the way she'd call out for Papa while chasing shadows on the barn floor. He sees it, the horse bolting in panic, the dust cloud rising the tiny body beneath iron hooves. Her final scream, cut off like a thread snapped in the wind, never left him. It lives in every heartbeat he wishes would stop. And as the shovel lifts the soil again and again, he wishes it could bury the sound, the images, the guilt. But guilt doesn't rot. It festers. Martha's death was mercy by fever. Sarah's death was judgment, and Thaddeus, who stayed alive when both of them left, has long wondered if that was the cruelest punishment of all. Behind him stands a house that once held music. Martha used to hum lullabies while tending the stove. Sarah once whispered secrets to her dolls by candlelight. Now the wind moves through the empty rooms like a ghost no one dares name. On the wall, a photo still hangs, Martha's smile frozen in time, Sarah in pigtails holding a wooden horse. The floorboards creak, not from footsteps, but from the memory of footsteps. Her Sunday dress still hangs behind the bedroom door untouched. Her storybook still lies open on the small desk, its pages yellowed but waiting. But she will not return to finish that story. No one will. The silence in that house isn't peaceful, it's suffocating. It's louder than a train whistle in the night. And Thaddeus can no longer sit within those walls pretending he's still a father, still a husband. So he turned his back on it, shovel in hand, heading into the storm, because the grave in the earth, as cold as it is, still feels more honest than the illusion of home. When Martha died 2 winters ago, it was sorrow. When Sarah died, it was annihilation. Martha left with a kiss and a prayer. Sarah left in a scream. For a time, Thaddeus still fed the chickens, still mended fence posts, still read aloud from the Bible like someone was listening. But then came the quiet. Not just in the rooms, but inside him. Silence so heavy it felt like lead behind his ribs. No one to cook for, no one to tuck in, no tiny arms around his neck, no soft voice asking for one more bedtime story. The days became blank pages. The nights were worse. When you lose the people you live for, breath becomes just another chore. Every sunrise is a punishment, every breath a betrayal. So he stopped trying. Let the food spoil. Let the animals run wild. Let his beard grow wild as his grief. What need does a dead man have for grooming, for prayer, for warmth? None, only for stillness. And perhaps today for a grave. At first it's just the wind, low and steady, like a whisper, through the bones of the desert. Then the scent of rain, distant but certain. The sky, once pale, now churns with bruised clouds. Thunder groans on the horizon. Thaddeus doesn't look up. He doesn't care if it rains. In fact, part of him hopes it pours floods. The land washes the grave over before he climbs in. A drop hits his cheek. Then another. Soon rain falls with fury, soaking his shirt, running down his spine, dripping from the shovel handle like blood. The grave grows darker, muddier, deeper. He keeps digging through the ground is slick. Though his boots sink, though his shoulders tremble, the storm doesn't stop him, it joins him, as if the sky itself mourns what this man has lost and what he's about to give up. There's no flash of lightning grand enough to erase his grief, but for one moment it feels like heaven sees him, and it weeps too, just as Thaddeus raises the shovel for what he believes will be the final time something shifts on the horizon. Not in the sky, not in the storm. In the distance, through sheets of falling rain and heat-born mist figures appear, small, unsteady, like mirages walking out of a dying dream. 5 of them, children, thin limbs, ragged clothes, moving toward him, not away, as if drawn by the very grave he's digging. His hand pauses mid-air. His brow furrows. Are they real, or just another ghost sent to torment him? But the rain doesn't blur them. The wind doesn't scatter them. They come closer, one stumbling another, holding her sister's hand tight. And something deep within Thaddeus stirs. The shovel falls, the grave gapes. But fate, in its cruel and curious way, has sent him 5 reasons not to finish what he started, and though he doesn't yet know it, everything is about to change. At first he thinks it's a trick of the rain, the kind of illusion desert storms pull on a grieving mind. The heat rising off the sand twists the air into ghosts. But these shapes don't fade. They move, slowly, unsteadily. 5 of them. Not men, not horses, not coyotes, children. 5 children walking barefoot across the broken earth, clothes-torn faces streaked with mud, and something else, desperation. Thaddeus stares frozen, his fingers still wet with grave dirt. His breath hitches. He wipes his eyes, unsure if grief is playing games again. But the children are real, and they're coming closer. No horses, no water, no shoes, just the fragile defiance of survival in their sunburned faces. He should turn away, let them pass, let the world do what it does. But he doesn't. Something in their presence snaps the chain of numbness wrapped around his heart, and for the first time in years, Thaddeus blinks like a man awakening from a long, terrible sleep. They are younger than he thought. The tallest, barely 14, walks ahead like a young wolf guarding her pack. Her chin is up, but her legs tremble with every step. Behind her, 4 girls cling to one another. One of them carries a toddler whose lips are cracked and skin burns with fever. They're coated in dust, streaked with cuts, eyes wide with fear, but somehow still burning with purpose. The kind of purpose children aren't meant to carry. Not unless they've seen too much. Thaddeus takes a step forward without realizing it. Their pain pulls at something inside him that no sermon ever touched, and when the eldest girl meets his gaze, fierce and trembling, proud and terrified, he knows these girls are not here by accident. They didn't stumble onto his land, they were sent. Not by God, but maybe by the same force that once gave him a daughter, and now perhaps offers him one more chance to protect what's good. He should keep digging. That's what he tells himself. Let the world be cruel. Let the rain fall. Let these children vanish into the storm like dreams do. But then the smallest one, the baby, collapses. Her body folds like a dried leaf, silent, sudden. Lucy, the older girl, screams. The sound pierces through the rain and strikes Thaddeus in the chest like a bullet. Before he can think, his shovel clatters to the ground. His boots splash through the muddy earth. He's at the girl's side, kneeling, lifting her into his arms. She's hot to the touch, burning with fever, her breath rattling and shallow. Not yet gone, but close. Very close. And in that moment, something inside Thaddeus reawakens not the part that grieves, but the part that once loved, and loved fiercely. The grave is still open behind him, but so is his heart, and one has begun to close while the other, against all odds, begins to open. He carries the girl inside, past the broken porch, steps past the door that hadn't opened in weeks. He lays her on the dusty kitchen table where his wife once made bread. Her tiny chest rises and falls like the wings of a wounded bird. The other girls follow, hesitant but desperate. How long since she had water, he asks, his voice rough from disuse. Yesterday morning, the oldest girl whispers, her name is Cora May. Her eyes, too old for her age, never leave Lucy's face. Thaddeus finds the old kettle pours from his rain barrel. The girls drink like they've been crawling across hell, and maybe they have. He watches them, not just their hunger, but their closeness, the way they clutch one another, the way they sit in silence as if any loud noise might shatter them. And for the first time in a long time, he feels something new. Not sorrow, but responsibility. He doesn't know their story, but he knows this. They need him, and maybe he needs them too. The girls sit huddled on the floor while Lucy sleeps. Cora May speaks. Her voice is steady, but only because it has no room left to tremble. We escaped from Copper Ridge Orphanage, she says. The name means nothing to Thaddeus until she keeps going. They call it an orphanage, but it's a prison. They beat us, starve us, make us work the fields from dawn to dark. If you cry, they lock you in the box. Her eyes flicker. Emma tried to run once. They caught her, left her out all night in the cold. Emma lowers her eyes. Violet wipes her sister's cheek. Rose doesn't speak, just holds Lucy's hand. Thaddeus listens, jaw clenched. The storm still rages outside, but a fiercer storm builds inside him. He thought his own grief had hollowed him, but now it fills again, not with sorrow, but with rage. Righteous, protective rage, the kind only a father could feel. They say the man in charge is named Silas Garrison. Cora continues, her voice dropping. He tells folks he's a guardian of the lost, sends letters to judges, says we're safe. But it's a lie, a big lie. And now, he's looking for us. She glances at the front door as if expecting it to burst open. He has men, guns, horses, and the law doesn't ask questions. Thaddeus feels his gut twist. Silas Garrison. That name, that kind of man, the kind that wraps cruelty in scripture, puts chains on children and calls it care. He looks at the girls. They're not safe, not here, not yet, but they're alive. And somehow, in the middle of the worst day of his life, 5 frightened souls have landed on his doorstep, like fate itself, begging for one last act of courage. The cabin hasn't seen warmth in months. The firewood's damp, the table thick with dust, the smell of old grief lingering in the corners. But as Thaddeus lays Lucy on the table and covers her with a wool blanket, the silence cracks. A little cough, a whispered prayer, the sound of water boiling. The house doesn't come back to life, but it breathes just barely. He boils rainwater, finds jars of peaches left by Martha. 2 summers ago, opens them with shaking hands. The girls huddle together near the hearth, steam rising from their clothes, their eyes darting at every creak of wood. Thaddeus watches them like a man seeing a fire from across a frozen field, distant, fragile, but glowing. He doesn't speak much. He doesn't have to. His actions silent, rough, careful say what he doesn't know how to. You are safe. For now. And that for children who've never known what safety feels like is more precious than gold. Cora May, Lucy, Emma, Violet, Rose. Thaddeus repeats each name softly, like he's reading scripture. The girls watch him closely. For some, it's the first time their names have been spoken with tenderness, not shouted with anger or etched into a roster by uncaring hands. He points to each child to make sure he remembers right. They nod one by one. "You got a Bible?" Cora asks. Thaddeus nods slowly. "Then you know names matter." She's right. In that moment, he sees it. These aren't just orphans. They're not numbers. They're not burdens. They are people, young, terrified, and brave. And each name he speaks is a vow, a silent commitment. The same way he once said Sarah before tucking her into bed, the way he whispered Martha when her hands grew cold. The names become anchors, holding him in place. He may have lost everything, but somehow these 5 names bring him back to something he thought long buried the will to protect. Outside, the storm reaches its full fury. Rain pounds the tin roof like hooves in stampede. The windows rattle. The muddy road leading to the cabin vanishes under rising water. The girls stare at the downpour with wide eyes, and for the first time Thaddeus sees what they see, not just safety, but a trap. The storm has washed away their tracks, but it's also trapped them. If anyone is looking, they'll come straight here, and there's nowhere to run. He grips the window frame. In his younger days, storms were welcome. They watered the fields, cooled, the earth filled the barrels. Now this storm feels like a noose tightening. The house isn't just shelter, it's a target. And with each gust of wind, with every bolt of lightning, the distance between him and danger shortens. The rain has given them one night, but after that, it'll come. And he'll have to be ready. Thaddeus catches her looking out the window again. Cora May, the oldest, barely a teen, but with eyes like someone who's seen too many midnights. She's not just watching the rain. She's listening, waiting. She knows better than any of them that men like Silas don't give up. They chase, they punish, they make examples. And Thaddeus sees it in her trembling jaw, in the way she holds her sisters close. She's not just afraid, she's preparing for the worst. He kneels beside her, doesn't ask questions, just says, "If they come, I won't let 'em take you." She doesn't smile, doesn't cry, just nods. It's not trust yet, but it's a beginning. And as thunder growls over the horizon, he rises, with one thought in mind: the storm outside is nothing compared to what's coming. But this time, Thaddeus Cornelius isn't planning to die. He's planning to stand. The storm doesn't hide them. It announces them. Hooves pounding through the mud like thunder too close to be natural. 5 riders crest the hill, dark figures against the gray horizon, rifles strapped to their saddles, slickers flapping like the wings of vultures. And at the front, leading them like a serpent slithering toward prey, is Silas Garrison. His face is calm, too calm, like a man used to taking what he wants and never being told no. He dismounts slowly, knocking on the cabin door, not with fists, but with authority. "Evening," he says, voice oily as snake oil. "Looking for some missing children." Thaddeus doesn't open the door. But he doesn't run either. The girls crouch beneath the floorboards, breath shallow. Rain pours. The noose tightens. And in that tension, something ancient rises in Thaddeus's bones, something forged long before grief, born of justice, and sharpened by love. The door creaks open, just a crack. Thaddeus stands tall, hand steady, despite the beat of his heart. "Ain't no children here," he says, eyes locked on Silas. It's a lie, and they both know it. Behind him, the cabin creaks. Somewhere beneath the floorboards, Lucy coughs. Silence. Garrison's eyes narrow. "You sure, Mr. Cornelius?" he asks, drawing out the name like poison. Thaddeus doesn't flinch. "Pretty sure." For a moment, neither moves. Rain trickles off the brim of Thaddeus's hat. The others watch their fingers twitching near their weapons. Garrison smiles, all charm and venom. "Mind if we take a look around? It's not a request." But Thaddeus doesn't stop them. He steps aside, Not because he's afraid, but because he knows this bravery isn't always about winning. Sometimes it's just about standing your ground when no one else will. They spread out like snakes through the house, boots on old floorboards, fingers flipping through drawers, prying open trunks, shoving aside furniture. One man knocks over a photo of Sarah and Martha. Another kicks a wooden cradle aside like trash. Thaddeus watches it all, jaw clenched so hard it aches. He says nothing, but the fire behind his eyes could burn the whole house down. Upstairs, someone laughs as they toss aside Sarah's Sunday dress. In the kitchen, another man pours the last jar of Martha's peaches onto the floor just to watch it shatter. It's not a search, it's desecration. And then Lucy coughs again, a soft sound barely audible over the rain. But Garrison hears it. Like a hound smelling blood, he turns slowly, eyes narrowing on the trapdoor, hidden beneath a bag of flour. His voice is soft, triumphant. "Well now, what do we have here?" Garrison steps forward, boot scuffing the flour bag aside. The wooden trapdoor is now exposed just thick enough to hide 5 little bodies and all their fear. He taps it with the toe of his boot, then crouches, fingers brushing the edge. Thaddeus raises his voice, calm but loud enough to make every man freeze. "They ain't yours." Garrison glances back, sneering. "They're wards of the state." "I've got papers, preacher." He yanks the trap open. The girls scream. Dust and panic explode into the air. Violet clutches Rose. Cora lunges in front of them like a lioness. But the daylight reaches in too fast. Guns cock, hands reach. And in that moment, Thaddeus steps forward, not as a broken man, not as a widower, but as something reborn, a guardian willing to die for 5 souls the world forgot. Silas doesn't raise his voice. He leans in close to the trapdoor, speaking just loud enough for the children below to hear. "You know this man," he drawls. "This good old protector of yours." He turns his head, slightly grinning like the devil in church. "He was digging his own grave when you showed up." "That's right. Planned to bury himself proper. Thought y'all should know what kind of man you're hiding under." His voice drips with false pity. But it's not pity he wants, it's doubt. In 5 seconds, he plants a seed he hopes will rot everything that's grown between Thaddeus and the girls. He knows one truth whispered with poison can unravel even the strongest bonds. And for a moment, the silence in that cabin is louder than thunder. A silence that tastes like betrayal and smells like rain-soaked wood. From beneath the trapdoor, a pair of eyes stare up, wide, dark, and trembling. Cora May. The girl who hadn't flinched during the escape, who'd led her sisters through thornbush and sunburn, now looks shattered. "Is it true?" she asks. Her voice isn't loud, but it cuts through the room like broken glass. It's not just a question. It's an accusation. A plea. A verdict waiting to be delivered. Thaddeus stands frozen for a heartbeat, the air thick with ghosts. The other girls watch him too, 5 pairs of eyes, suddenly unsure. He doesn't blame them. Trust is a fragile thing when the world's only ever lied to you. And now the one man who promised them safety wears the same sorrowed face they've seen on cowards and quitters. What could he possibly say to undo what's already been done? Thaddeus doesn't offer excuses, doesn't lower his eyes. He simply steps forward, voice steady but raw. "Yes, I was gonna end it. Not because I'm weak, but because I lost everything. My wife, my little girl. My reason." He takes a breath like it weighs 100 pounds. "But when I saw Lucy fall, when I heard y'all scream her name, I knew the world hadn't ended yet. Not if I could still do something good." Silence again, but different now. Not shame, not pity. Something heavier. Cora doesn't respond right away, but her hands unclench. The other girls look at each other, not with fear, but with a flicker of something unexpected. Understanding. Thaddeus has no idea if they'll forgive him, But in that moment he realizes forgiveness isn't something you ask for, it's something you earn one broken truth at a time. No one says a word for a long while. Rain taps the roof like distant drums. Then Cora, without looking up, says softly, "Don't lie to us again." Thaddeus nods. Never. It's not a vow made in glory or shouted over gunfire. It's whispered, grounded in sorrow, and more powerful for it. In the corner, Lucy stirs. Emma rubs her eyes. Violet wipes her nose on her sleeve. Somehow, the girls begin to shift, not physically, but emotionally. The walls they'd built start to crack. Maybe because someone finally didn't pretend to be a hero. Maybe because he told the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Garrison sneers at the exchange like he's watching fools cry over spilled milk. But Thaddeus sees something else, something Garrison will never understand. Trust reborn in ashes is stronger than trust built in comfort. And that's the kind that can survive a war. The crack of a door slamming open is louder than any rifle. Sheriff Morrison steps into the cabin like a ghost of justice, wet hat, dripping shotgun aimed dead at Silas Garrison's chest. Behind him, 2 deputies file in boots, splashing on the porch. Garrison's men freeze, hands twitching near their belts, but Morrison's calm is colder than the storm outside. "Drop 'em," he says, and the tone leaves no room for interpretation. Rifles clatter to the floor. The girls beneath the trap door hold their breath. For the first time in days, Thaddeus doesn't feel alone. The weight of right and wrong is no longer on his shoulders alone. The law, real law, has come, and it came not with questions but with truth, and a barrel loaded with consequence. Morrison's voice is slow but sharp. "We've been tracking Copper Ridge for months, heard rumors, got affidavits. But now we've got witnesses." He gestures toward the girls, their faces peeking through the trap door like flowers after a long winter. "This is the last stop for Garrison's kind," he says. Garrison smirks, trying to regain footing. "I've got documents, guardianship papers." But Morrison doesn't blink. "And I've got testimony. From 5 girls and 1 man who decided to live when it mattered." Thaddeus says nothing, but something settles in his chest. The ache of guilt eases just slightly. The line between coward and protector has blurred. And in that space, a second chance takes root. After the chaos, the silence feels strange. Morrison holsters his gun and turns to Thaddeus. "You got any claim to these girls?" Thaddeus hesitates, then speaks with more certainty than he's felt in years. "Only the one that counts. I'm here. I won't leave. Not again." Morrison studies him long and hard. Then he nods, almost like a man giving over the reins of a tired horse to someone who knows how to ride. No forms, no red tape. Just a silent understanding carved from storms and blood and truth. The girls don't smile yet, but they look at Thaddeus differently. Less like a stranger, more like something they might someday call home. That night, for the first time in too long, the cabin is quiet, but not empty. Lucy sleeps curled in a chair, fever finally broken. Emma leans on Violet. Cora sits closest to the fire legs, crossed like a scout. Thaddeus checks the locks, closes the trap door, stokes the fire one last time. He doesn't say much, just watches, feels, breathes. The storm outside has passed, but the storm inside, the one that had been tearing at his soul, is quiet too. Not gone, but quiet. And as he lowers himself into the old armchair shotgun nearby, eyes on the door, he knows if the devil comes back, he'll find a man waiting. A man who's no longer digging graves, but building something worth defending. The storm has passed. The night is deceptively quiet. Garrison sits in cuffs, soaked and brooding, eyes darting like a wolf, waiting for the leash to slip. One of his men, Crawford, fakes a limp, asks to step outside to relieve himself. Morrison, exhausted but fair, nods. 1 minute. But as soon as the deputy's back is turned, Crawford reaches into the mud, pulls a hidden revolver from a tree root, and vanishes into the dark. Inside, Thaddeus feels it before it happens, like an old soldier sensing the battlefield shift. He checks the windows. His breath turns cold. The danger isn't over. It never really was. Because evil doesn't surrender. It hides. It waits. Glass shatters. A bullet tears through the kitchen shelf, scattering Martha's china. Lucy screams. The cabin explodes into chaos. Garrison lunges, shoulder-checking a deputy. Crawford storms in through the back, gun blazing. Thaddeus tackles him, wrestles him to the ground. The old man's strength surprises even himself. They roll across the floor, knock over chairs, smash into the firewood bin. Cora grabs her sisters and dives under the table, pulling them close like a mother bear with cubs. Morrison returns fire from the porch, shouting orders, calling for backup. This isn't just a fight, it's war in the space of a kitchen. And once again, Thaddeus finds himself between death and the only thing worth living for. Crawford breaks free, aims at Violet. Thaddeus grabs the old hunting rifle from the wall, Martha's father's gun, untouched for years. The barrel shakes. The shot rings out. Crawford drops hard. Garrison tries to run, but Morrison is faster. He tackles him in the mud, cuffing him twice this time, once for justice, once for spite. Smoke curls from the rifle's muzzle. Thaddeus stands there, breathing hard, face streaked with blood and rain, but eyes clear. The cabin is wrecked but standing. The girls are crying but alive. He doesn't ask if they're okay. He just looks at each of them and nods. And they nod back. No words needed. A new kind of language is born in fire. As dawn breaks, deputies escort Garrison and his men to the wagon. No one waves goodbye. The girls stay close to Thaddeus, silent but steady. Morrison tips his hat. "You ever think of running a home for real?" he says with a half-smile. Thaddeus doesn't answer right away. He just looks at the 5 faces around him, scared, scarred, but safe, and says, "Already am." The lawman chuckles, then rides off. The land is quiet again, but this time it's not lonely. And in the stillness the sound of birds returns. The cabin didn't fall. Neither did he. What was once a man's tomb is now a shelter of life, rebuilt by the hardest material on earth, second chances. The cabin, once filled with silence and sorrow, now hums with life. Morning light pours through the windows, catching dust that dances like fireflies. Lucy chases a chicken barefoot across the yard, her fever long gone. In the kitchen, Rose cracks eggs with both hands, half of them landing in the bowl. Emma reads aloud from a torn book, while Violet mimics the voices. Cora stands near the sink, drying dishes like a grown woman, though she's still just a girl. Thaddeus watches from the doorway, a coffee cup in hand, not daring to blink. Because this chaos, this joy is sacred. It's not the life he planned, but it's the one he's been given. And maybe that's the better one. Behind the cabin, where the soil was once torn, and angry wildflowers now bloom in soft, defiant color. The hole Thaddeus dug to bury himself has been filled with sunflower seeds, daisies, and rosebush cuttings. Every morning he stands by it with a watering can in hand and a new reason in his heart. The grave is not forgotten, it never will be, but it no longer calls to him. Now it reminds him of a line he read once in a book Sarah used to carry. What we bury with pain can bloom with purpose. And as bees hum around the petals and the girls laugh in the distance, he finally believes it. One night, as the fire crackles low, Lucy climbs into Thaddeus's lap without a word. She nestles into his chest like it's the safest place on earth. "Papa," she whispers. He stiffens. Breath catches in his throat. It's the first time she's said it. The others glance over but say nothing. Violet smiles. Cora nods. The word doesn't erase the past, it doesn't replace Sarah, but it adds something to the future. Thaddeus places a hand on Lucy's back and answers not with words but with the kind of silence that holds a whole world inside it. A silence filled with love. Morrison rides in one afternoon with legal documents, guardianship, protection, signatures. But he doesn't hand them to Thaddeus first. He hands them to Cora. "You're the oldest," he says. "You get to choose." Cora reads them carefully, looks up at her sisters, then at Thaddeus. She nods. Morrison smiles, says nothing, and leaves them to it. The papers aren't what make this a family, but they're proof that sometimes the world does see, and sometimes it makes the right call. The girls stop flinching when the wind knocks something over. They sleep through the night. They plant beans by the fence and argue over who gets the bigger blanket. They are no longer orphans. Not in spirit, not in soul. They belong not just to Thaddeus, but to the land, the light, and to each other. The cabin no longer groans under grief. It breathes, lives, hums like a song finally remembered. Thaddeus Cornelius once dug a hole to disappear. Now he builds shelves, mends boots, teaches Cora to shoot, and lets Lucy braid his beard even when it tugs. He is not who he was. He is not who he expected to be. He is something else, something stronger. Not because he escaped sorrow, but because he let it teach him. Let it open a door instead of closing it. In the final shot, we see him in the field hammer in hand, building a swing set from old fence wood. Behind him, 5 girls run wild in the wind. And for the first time in a long time, the wind doesn't carry grief. It carries laughter.